Hey guys, today I'm gonna do a different kind of video where I try to predict what Shadowverse will be like 2 months from now. And basically what the ranked meta will be like after everybody's sort of figured out the expansion. And I'm gonna do it in MS Paint. There's gonna be some obvious stuff here and there, but hopefully everyone out there finds at least one thing they disagree with. I think that would make this the most fun. So get your notepads ready, class. Time to write down the things you think I'm wrong about so you can tell me about it a year from now. So let's get a framework first. Where is the meta at right now? Using sites like Shadowlog and ShadowNote, we can get a pretty fair representation of the play rate of things. Not 100% accurate, obviously, it's just a guideline. This will look familiar at first, but I want to try a better shape so I can fit all 7 factions in here. The order is irrelevant. All you need to know is that the triangle basically dictates what the rest are kind of allowed to play if they want to have healthy matchups. I'm only going to sample master ladders since literally everybody is master anyway. There's like 50,000 master players. The sample size is more than enough for this. So our most frequently recorded decks on ladder are Daria Rune, D-Shift Rune, Mid Sword, Aggro Blood, Ramp Dragon, Aggro Shadow, and White Wolf Forest. And among those, only D-Shift and Ramp Dragon have below a 50% win rate, which if you've played either makes sense. D-Shift can brick pretty hard sometimes, and they both can be pretty weak to aggro on certain draws. Out of these, Daria only has a bad matchup to Ramp Dragon and is pretty even with Blood. Kind of on the flip side, but not really, D-Shift gets a much better Ramp Dragon matchup with a way less even Aggro Blood matchup. Mid-range Sword has a healthy, positive matchup against literally everything. Aggro Shadow for the most part preys on D-Shift and random Seraph decks, rocking almost a 60% win rate against them both. Forest is able to beat just about anything while going even with Sword, except for D-Shift that actually wins a turn before Bolt can. But Forest's 60% win rate against Shadow, Blood, and Haven makes this completely fine. And then finally Haven, who gets basically fucked by everybody. Garuda decks are statistically some of the strongest ones for them at the moment, but Haven doesn't have a positive win rate against really anything relevant at the moment either, so. And that's a very generalized, about as accurate as we can get representation of what happens on ladder most of the time. So now for the fun stuff, where does each faction go from here? Let's go ahead and start with Forest since I think they're easy. Remember, we're doing 2 months into the future here, so Forest realistically didn't get too much this expansion. Once people have had the chance to play Anomaly a bit, they'll cut it and properly label it as a fun card. The extremely overrated Jungle Warden will be cut shortly after, with the only rare sticking around maybe being a 1 or 2 of Elf Queen. While she won't replace Fairy Beast completely, I think she'll still see some play here and there. As much as I wouldn't want to, Aaron will probably be cut from lists as well as they start to basically reform what they are now, Tempo and White Wolf combo. The only cards I see sticking around aside from Fairy Queen are the very solid ward card, Vist, and the absolutely incredible Beetle Warrior. After Forest players remember they have better cards this whole time, we'll see Forest sitting comfortably in Tier 1. I'm also going to take this chance to claim Jungle Warden as the community's most overrated card from the expansion while we're over here. He's going to end up being some hot garbage, fam, I'm sorry. Another easy one, jump over to Haven. Remember how I said that Haven gets beaten by pretty much everything? That's not going to change at all, really. Aggro Haven gets a pretty neat new 3-drop, and Seraph gets a Satan replacement, maybe, and that's about it, unfortunately. Nothing in the expansion answers Haven's problems with what the current ladder meta consists of. And more than likely, Garuda Haven will end up being the dominant archetype while playing Zoe and maybe Dark Jun, maybe, once the expansion's fully explored. Haven will likely end up being one of the least played factions on ladder with no outstandingly positive matchups. Maybe they'll get lucky next time. Haven will be a solid tier Haven. Let's go next door to Shadow next. Shadow at the moment has a good aggro deck and a control deck using Nephthys, and for the most part I don't see these archetypes changing. I personally believe that Little Soul Squasher will make it into most Shadow lists while Orthrus will only be played in aggro. A mid-range archetype will definitely be played around with, but I feel like it'll be outclassed by other types you can play and won't be very popular. Regardless, Iktar, Prince Catacomb, and Soul Squasher will be the new cards played in that archetype, while by this time everybody who thought Minty was playable will either admit that she's horrible or downvote YouTubers that call her bad. Thane also has a fairly high chance of still seeing play for the sheer stat dump that he is, but I think in the end Shadow decks will be too tight to fit him in. I think for the most part the expansion won't change Shadow from being as popular or as good as it is now, and it will settle right back where it is now, in a solid tier 2. Bouncing up to Dragon, we have a solid range of fairly testable cards. Zell will forever threaten cheap lethals, and will definitely get some in the beginning, but no deck will realistically run him afterwards. Aina, your other forte maybe, will more than likely not make the cut after a month or so due to always not being able to get the full 6 mana's value out of her. Lightning Blast, Rahab, and Ouroboros are all very powerful cards in their own right, and will be staying around in Ramp Haven lists for a while, but the real winner here is Sybil. Sybil will not only be amazing in Ramp Dragon now, but will also continue to be a staple in Ramp Dragon for expansions to come. Lightning Blast also does a good job of helping you beat Shadow, which has been a pretty bad matchup for a while, so Ramp Dragon should stay about the same in terms of popularity on ladder, if not a bit more. While I don't think, even with all of this though, that Ramp Dragon will push into most people's ideas of Tier 1, Dragon will be fine directly below it. Swing over to Sword with Gawain and Laisha coming out on top as the most played cards. Gawain decks will be overstuffed at first, filled to the brim with commanders, but over the months more and more will be cut until you're running a small, concise core that best complements Gawain and the turns you can actually utilize him. Laisha will make her way into all kinds of sword archetypes, likely as a 3-of, while Luminous Mage and Roland will be fringe played in certain decks. Luminous in decks that aim to flood the board and use her aggressively, and Roland in decks that aim to stall the opponent out and improve their win rate against combo decks. Sword will remain a Tier 1 faction, and the current Maid Leader only pulling Albert strategy will likely still remain as its own independent deck throughout the expansion. Shimmy over to Rune, the young Halo Golem holding down the early game while Hulking Giant seals in the late. There's no way Earthright doesn't end up being one of the better win rate decks over time in this expansion. It already has okay matchups to a lot of popular lists, and getting solid cards that it is will only push it over the edge, in my opinion. Rune also got the card that I'm going to claim as my dark horse of the expansion. I believe that Mutagenic Bolt will become one of the most hated cards in the entire game. Up to this point, polymorph effects have been relatively controlled, and Bolt just throws that out the window. A 6 mana to unconditionally polymorph everything your opponent has while also dealing their minion count as 1 damage face each is absolutely insane. Flooding Daria boards can play this the following turn to very quickly end the game, or at worst get nothing but complete value trades. I hope I'm wrong about this card, honestly, because I'm scared of it. Rune is also, of course, still Tier 1, nothing changes at all. And Blood's turn. No more verbs, we're just at Blood now. Blood was the big winner of the expansion, getting a card that literally ignores their garbage class mechanic. Yes, you won't be able to Blood Moon on curve into crazy things every single game, but the payoff of just getting this thing off on board is insane, and the games that you do get to play it on curve into crazy things, you win almost just because you're doing crazy things. Like playing a 4-mana 4/7 Rush Bane Drain, or a 4-mana 4/4 that draws 2 cards, or a 5-mana summon 2 2-drops out of your deck. This thing is absolutely insane in the membrane, and I personally believe it'll push Blood into being Tier 1. I saved the biggest claim close to the end on purpose, fam, that's right. Blood Moon will be one of, if not the single most impactful and powerful cards in the entire expansion. Can't wait for the memes if I'm wrong. Blood also got a massive pool of cards that'll stick around for a long time, like Belphegor, Blood Moon, Airjammer, Mask, Imp, and Sneck, all usable in Control, and most useful in a deck that'll be utilizing Blood Moon. Blood's Tier 1, you guys, you heard it here first, and if it's not, I'll open 200 Owlcats. Wrapping up with neutrals, a lot of them do super neat things, but I think for the most part Grimnir is the major takeaway. It's a very versatile early game ward that'll never be useless, while the others seem a bit situational. Test of Strength and Zeus probably have my vote for the next likely to stick around. Test of Strength has neat synergies to Shadow, and Zeus isn't completely literally useless always, and even if a lot worse than Bahamut, he's still pretty flexible. Also, by the way, Hamsa is still better than Owlcat, get at me. That's it though, you guys. That's what I think will be played a few months after the expansion, as we're looking forward to the summer and the expansion after this one. So, I expect most of the things I said in this video to come true. Either way, let me know what you think, whether you agree or disagree, and we'll see who ends up being right for the fun of it in the end. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye.